This is Stephanie at Hightower Stitching. Today's video is Back to the Wedding Ring Quilt. It's part 4. I'm going to talk about empty spaces and almost the end. You can see this is almost the end. There I have rows and rows of binding that I'm going to hand stitch to this quilt. I was making it for my daughter. It's called the Wedding Ring Quilt, or the Crown of Thorns, or the Charlestown Square. It's got different names. I had hand-pieced all of the red and cream squares. And then I was ready to put everything together. But to make this work, these are set on point, and there was a 10-inch square in between each of the diamonds. When you get ready to hand stitch, there are several things that you have the luxury of doing, and one of those is actually making a blank 10-inch square and trying to decide what you're going to do with it. And sometimes I do that, and then sometimes I just start on the square and hope for the best. This was my informal plan for the 10-inch block. And I used this over and over. It just sat there by my sewing. And I would look back at it, and it has my little numbers on there to tell me how far apart the different things are, or how many fans I have on it, or even the circles, or the size of the circles. And this is my after the block was developed. The first thing that I did was there were a lot of squares in this quilt. And so I said, I'm going to take some of the space out of the 10-inch square by going around the edge and marking that 2 inches, because that's the size of the squares in the pieced part. And then I quilted double lines. And so that took out 2 inches on that side and 2 inches on that side. Then I said, I have a big piece in the middle right here. I could start with something in the middle. I could go to one of the books and find something that goes in the center. But I sort of wanted it all to go together, so I just started from the corner, and I drew a line out to the middle of that block, almost the middle, and then I went from there the same distance and marked that one. So now I had it down to 3 pieces that I could more easily manage. And so been really liking the feathers, so I said, well, this side I'm going to do feathers. And then I have some of my tools that I have, like my ruler. These are my very sophisticated tools. I've got a plain old ruler. We used an air erase marker on this one. I have the top off a peanut can. And then I don't know if that does eggs or what it does, but I love those circles. I have a couple of those and hang on to them. And so I didn't have to worry about my circles. They were right there. I used my lid in a number of places to get those done. And the thing is, as I was going with my hand stitching, you could change your idea of what you were doing if you didn't like the way it was going. Here's an example of the 10-inch square. And if you look closely, you can see my 2-inch piece that came off with the blocks in it. You can see my hand-stitched feathers, my broken up bottom of that cone shape, and then go on up, and you can see where I've got that. And it's so much fun. That's the nice thing about it. And the luxury of it is that you can make it as you go. Now, if you're going to do this on the sewing machine and fill in a 10-inch square, you have to know ahead of time how you're going to do it. And if you want it to be a continuous line, you really have to have a plan before you start. And finally, you've hand stitched all of your squares. And I finished the last one. I said, oh, great, I have just about got this thing licked. And then there's the border. And you've got to decide what to do with the border. Now, this border is really colorful. It makes a difference the kind of border you have, if it's a solid fabric or light fabric. But this one happened to be dark. And so I just started playing with it. I used my 3 pieces again, my circle, my lid, and the ruler, not much of the ruler. And I started making a pattern. Now this is after the fact again, because I experimented actually on the quilt with these shapes, and then I had a pattern, a repeat pattern that developed, and as I got closer to the next corner, I would space it out a little bit or pull it in so that I could end with the same thing on all 4 corners. And I have to show you from the back because the back is light, and this is turned vertically. So if you'll look, as I travel down through it, you can see my flower pattern appointed almost like a leaf, and then it starts over again and the pattern goes all the way around. And you can see on the back of the quilt, all that hand stitching you do actually makes a very pretty surface. So by the end of the weekend, I will have all the binding on, and I'll be ready to start thinking about the label that I want to put on there for my daughter. My goal today was to share with you how much fun you can have when you have an empty space and some simple tools, and you start breaking up that space to get ready to hand stitch, or if you get ready to use your machine to stitch also. This is Stephanie at Hightower Stitches with a wedding ring quilt, part 4, empty spaces and almost the end. Thank you for watching. Any notes that I have after the video that come to my mind, I post those into the description. If you like this video, please subscribe and hit like.